Hi, welcome to my channel. I know it's been a very long time since I posted, but life happens and I had to take care of some things. But anyway, I wanted to talk today about adults in Angelman community and having them in a residential placement when you are unable to take care of them or whatnot. And I want to say there is no shame in doing that. It takes probably longer than you think, and you have to keep some things in mind. One, you have to keep in mind you physically. Are you physically able to still take care of them and the environment is completely safe? Two, also consider if they were typical aged children, they would probably be living on their own. And a lot of times we forget, like being a mom or dad, how much you love your kids and you want to just do everything for them, take care of them. And I know myself, I had two other adult children who, same thing, when they moved out, I felt really sad, really depressed, missed them so much, and wanted to see them still a lot, but yet they want their own life. They really don't want to see you as much, and that is a reality. And so you have to keep in mind that even though our angels can't talk, they do have the same kind of feelings about things that the typical kids do. So they do most likely have the feelings like, oh, I'm just tired of you telling me what to do. I want to do it my way. Or I just wish that I had a break from all this. But they don't know any better because this is all they've known. So it's hard for them to communicate those things when they don't even know what they're missing out on. It's just like you know, if you've never been somewhere and all of a sudden you went there and you're like, wow, I really love this place. But before, you didn't know you could miss it because you didn't know it existed. So it's the kind of the same concept with adult residential placement. Now, secondly, you need to consider that it's going to take a very, very long time to find the right fit. I am just going to speak on my behalf. I am not judging anybody. I'm not trying to make anybody feel any certain way. I'm just going to speak on my perspective, on my experience, and hopefully it helps give some insight on some things. All right, so I was in a situation where, I used to be married. I used to have two older kids, and all of a sudden, don't have any of that. My kids, my angel kids, continue to get bigger, smarter, and I was having a difficult time managing 4 adults at the same time with 2 dogs and 2 cats. And it was starting to become pretty unsafe because I needed help from my local county, and that was not happening. I couldn't find anybody that could consistently work for any length of time. I'd find somebody that'd last for a week or two, and then they'd all of a sudden quit. And so it became really dangerous. There was times where I fell down backwards off of the chair and I couldn't move, and I thought, oh my God, is this going to be the last time I'm going to be able to move? And the kids wouldn't be able to call 911. I didn't have my phone with me. Luckily, I managed to get up, and I was extremely sore, but that's just one of many little incidents where I'm just like, geez, what if something happens? I have no one to call. No one will come and help me. I don't have anybody that I used to have. So I looked into the county to see what I need to do, and they first of all got me in touch with different residential providers. And I have to tell you guys, it's very, very important to be very mindful of what you want in residential placement. There are so many options, and the most important thing is listen to your gut intuition. Your gut will lead the way on what is right. You have to follow your gut. So I interviewed probably, well, at the time I was looking for something, relatively soon. I didn't know that finding the exact fit would take a really, really long time. And so there are options where you, it depends on like where you want to live. Like you can, if you want to stay in your county, which I did, you have like different providers have different like rules. So one provider will have like you have to go to their day program and their residential program, and other providers are like, no, you could still go to a different provider, and we'll just do residential placement. And so you have to look at what is best for you. And when I was doing the interview, I looked into this one, and it sounded really great because they have an option where it's not like they had a couple options, but the most beneficial option for me was they had a beautiful home, and it was really close to like the size of the current house I was living in. And the benefit of me having so many angels is they all would be able to be together without other clients. And that's the other thing you need to ask when you're looking for placement is how many other people would they be living with. Most of the time I heard like 2 or 3. And make sure you do a tour. It is so important to do a tour. Don't look at the videos, don't look at the pictures. You must do a tour. Write down your questions. If you don't know what to ask, you could do what I did, Google what to ask. But it's very important, and it is a learning experience. And I'll probably try to post more videos about my experience on more involved things that went along with this. I'm trying to do it as basic as I can. So I did the tours, and they had this home that I really liked, and it was owned by the county, so it was not owned by the residential provider, but that doesn't matter. It just was more beneficial for me because the rent is cheaper than other homes. And that's the other thing. They're all going to vary. All the rent is different. And it depends on how big the home was. There was a home I looked at that was really big and also quite newer, but the rent was just so much. It was like really close to what he was bringing in just from SSI only. And he was still going to be responsible for all the other expenses. So that meant I was going to have to pay for the other expenses that were not covered by his SSI because the rent absorbed most of his SSI. I still went with that house, by the way, but that's a whole different story because the first place that I was looking into would not take 4, and most people don't take 4. So I had to split my kids up, and that was a hard decision to make. So going back to looking at the residential provider, it's important that you look at every iota of your life and put it in the ISP, every single little detail. So if you give your kid a bath every other day, you need to put that in. If they like showers instead of baths, you need to put that in. Do they like baths instead of showers? You need to put that in. Do they get their haircut once a month? Where do they go? You need to put that in. Like there's just so many things you have to put in. But anyway, I hired this residential provider. Well, here I come to find out that there were people living in this home. So I had to wait and wait. And then when it was almost time to get them to be moved out, suddenly someone died. And that made it even that much longer because they wanted to be very careful with the parent because their child passed away suddenly in the home, and they didn't want to bother her with moving things out of the home, and they wanted to be very respectful of that. So then that added like several more months. And then there was the other person that lived in the home. Their guardian was out of the country, and it was a long time before they were going to come back to the United States to sit down and figure out where they're going to move their son and blah, 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 explaining to them that, you know, their son can't possibly pay the rent for something that's supposed to be for 3 people, because that's how they divide the rent. The house is rent so much per month, and then they divide it by how many people are going to live there. So if it came down to one person, he'd be responsible for, in essence, 3 people's rent, and that wouldn't make sense. So that's why they told her that it would be best for him to move, and then my kids would be able to move in. So it took probably 18 months for them to move in. And once they moved in, it was a whole different ballgame. The provider was not doing anything that I asked them to do. It was one thing after another, and they were basically throwing the blame on me that I shouldn't be there so much, that I need to, you know, not be present so much. And granted, there are some providers that don't want you to be around, and that's, you know, that's really your personal preference. It is, I guess, standard for them to ask the guardian not to come for 30 days so they could get acclimated to their new environment. But me, I just wanted to check and make sure, because my kids are all I have. You know, I already lost 2 kids, and I only have these 4, and I just love them too much. I just don't want them to be mistreated or have anything wrong happen. So I found out their beds weren't getting changed, that they were sleeping in their own yuck. Somebody brought their dog with them while they were watching my kids. It was just one thing after another. My one daughter was having seizures, and, you know, they were blaming me on that, and it was just a big mess. And every time I tried to address it, I would just get the runaround. Like if I said something about the beds, they'd say they'd take care of it. I'd come the next day, it was still the same. Then I'd take pictures, they'd say take care of it, then it would be the same. It was just a constant thing like that. And then with the dog, same thing. I said, you know, it's not supposed to be this way. The landlord even says no pets, and the owner says he'll take care of it, and then it still happens. And then I'm the blame because I showed up when I wasn't supposed to. It was just constantly like that, and unfortunately, I had to fire them, and my kids had to move back home with me. I mean, that is something that you have to consider when you're doing the residential placement. And that is, you have to think about every little detail, and you have to make sure that you are putting your kids in the right care, that the providers are doing what they're supposed to do. And also, you know, you just have to give yourself that cushion in case something goes wrong. You just have to, because even though it so sucked that I had to move them back in, it was way worse seeing them live the way they were living. It was so way worse. I mean, I couldn't live with myself if I were to try to just gut it out and just keep fighting and fighting. I mean, this was the first couple months, and it was just a constant fighting. Like, there was no resolve. Like, they never fixed a single issue I asked them to fix. It was constantly, the blame was shifted to me, and or they would pass the buck to somebody else and it was their responsibility, and then they failed, and it was just excuses after excuses. And it is traumatic for the kids to like move out and then move back in. And I just want to emphasize that you have to think about what point in life you got to do this. I mean, my kids initially, when they moved out, they were really, really happy that they had a new place to live, and they seemed to be doing so well. And that was the thing that was also thrown in my face, like, oh, it's not so bad as you're making it out. That, look at, they're so happy. If it was really bad, you'd see it in them, and you're just making it all up. And that wasn't true, because we parents of Angelman kids know that our kids are really happy. And that is the state of Angelman syndrome, happy puppet syndrome, right? So I always equivalent that to like, you're going to a concert and you think you're going to like your favorite band, but instead it's something that you really never listen to, like heavy metal or country music. And you're going to make the best of it and try to have a good time, but you're really not happy. That's kind of the same situation that my kids were in. They were making the best of the situation, but they weren't happy. And I'm the guardian. I'm the one that's responsible for them. And it's my job, my sole job, to make sure everything's okay. It's not the county's job. It's not anyone else's job. It's my job. And I want to make sure that they have a good quality of life before I can enjoy my life. And that's what it took. And I had to move them back. And it takes, a long time for this kind of process. So I just want to give you guys a general idea. If you have any more questions, you could ask me down in the comments. I will try to post more on this topic, but the bottom line is I just want to tell you the reasons why you should consider it, which are very important, and they're very reasonable, and also what goes into it. It's a lot. It's a lot more than I thought, and it took me a long time to get to that mental space. And I think the biggest thing for me was, oh my God, like, it's becoming really unsafe. Like, I have no one to care about me if something goes wrong. Like, there's no one in the house that's going to pick up 911. And, I don't have my older kids to check up on me and make sure I'm not dead. And the kids are just like, going crazy, because my 4, they're like little gremlins. They're all over the place, and they all have their individual personalities. And I just couldn't keep up with it all. Like, it's just a lot. But I love them so much, and I don't want to do the wrong thing. I promise I will try really hard to make another video really soon. And thanks for watching.